Thrilled to be able to have you on. I guess we'll just jump into it. So why don't we talk about the most timely thing, and that's you're winning the Ring of Honor championship. I know you've got a long history with Ring of Honor, but is this a big thrill, or given kind of the circumstances of where Ring of Honor is now, is it sort of bittersweet to be champion in this kind of uncertain time for them?
No, I don't think it's bittersweet. I think that it is kind of the icing on the cake of a really long journey for me pertaining to Ring of Honor. I wrestled my first match for Ring of Honor in July of 2015. And at that time, there was no real women's division anymore. There wasn't women being featured heavily on the show. So it was just kind of a dream of mine and Mandy Leon's to create a women's division. And Mandy was the driving force in bringing me in to be a part of that and to kind of have that first match and get the ball rolling. So we pushed really hard for that first, when it was Women of Honor Championship tournament that we did, and we crowned, the first ever Women of Honor champion. But it's been a really long journey to get to a Ring of Honor World Women's Champion, have another championship tournament, and then to finally become the champion. So it's not bittersweet because I'm going to wave that Ring of Honor banner all over Impact Wrestling, all over the wrestling world as much as I can, and kind of help their buzz stay alive.
Does it kind of give you some incentive to, as you just touched on, help keep that Ring of Honor brand alive? Again, they're going through some issues. I know they've announced a show in April. Do you feel like you've got some skin in the game now that I've got to do what it takes to help keep Ring of Honor alive and thriving?
Absolutely. And, with Hard to Kill weekend just happening and the aftermath of that, we saw, some Ring of Honor people pop up and kind of invade Impact Wrestling. So I think as much as it's now my chance to keep that Ring of Honor name alive, Ring of Honor themselves have been trying to do that too. And I think that that's great because the more wrestling there is and the more wrestling companies there is, the competition thrives us all to stay at the top of our game and to put out a better product. So I'm such a proponent of Ring of Honor coming back, and I'm so happy that they announced that they're running a show WrestleMania weekend in Dallas, Supercard of Honor. And, I hope that I get to defend my championship on their pay-per-view.
Right. So you're the Ring of Honor champion and the AAA champion working in Impact, having defended one of those titles on an NWA show some weeks back. The current Impact women's champion is going to be at the WWE Royal Rumble. So it just feels like it's like the multiverse in Spider-Man, right? It's like all these worlds colliding. How exciting is that for you as a talent? And do you think it's something that benefits Impact as well? It's interesting that all these doors are kind of coming down, and it really goes against the way wrestling was and has been for decades and decades.
I think that for Impact Wrestling, we're always trying to get more people to see our product, more eyes on our product, more interest on our product. So I think especially announcing Mickie James as the Impact Knockouts World Champion on Friday Night SmackDown was incredible. Like, I was probably as equally as surprised as the wrestling world was, because I was like, holy crap, like that put much more eyes, I hope, on Hard to Kill, on Mickie and I's main event match at Hard to Kill. And, if it's people tuning in for the first time, if it's people who haven't watched since the TNA days or are just giving us another chance, I hope that makes them stay. And, WWE is known to not, necessarily play well with others. So the fact that they are now kind of throwing their hand into that pot of cross promotion and this, forbidden door, if you want to call it that, is incredible. Even if it's just for, Mickie to be in the Rumble, I think that the buzz that Impact got from it was great for our brand and what it's going to do for us in the future.
Yeah. And for you, how much does it benefit you? You're relatively young in your career to get this opportunity to work at all these different companies at once. I mean, completely different worlds, working in Mexico as a star for AAA. And then NWA has its own thing, a different kind of format, different audience. So does it give you kind of that experience that really several generations of wrestlers haven't had because that territory system has gone away.
I think that it's just been like a learning curve for me. And I think that it will benefit me just being more well-rounded. I mean, I never got to wrestle in Mexico before AAA, and before going there and challenging Fabi for, a title versus title match. So the fact that I got to do Triple Mania and, now I have an established relationship with Conan and Hugo and some of these people that, I might have never been able to meet, let alone have a working relationship with, is so much to my benefit for now and for years to come. I mean, it just opens so many doors and possibilities for me to continue to work with them while I'm at Impact, and then for whatever my future holds. So I'm so grateful that Impact has seen me as this person that can wave the Impact banner in all of these different companies. And I got to have the title match at NWA with Melina as one of the headliners for Empower. So I'm just grateful that all of these people see the potential in me, see that, I'm capable of being a figurehead in our knockouts division and carrying that.
Yeah. I was watching the interview you did with Chris Van Fleet. I guess that's a little over a year ago. It was soon after he came over to Impact, and you were already talking retirement, which kind of blew my mind in that interview. And you said essentially, you achieved your dream, and this was before winning the Knockouts title. If you never won a major title, you'd sort of be okay with it. Now, having won 3, do you have you changed your tune? Does it? Are you glad he never went anywhere? You didn't retire. Not that you were talking retiring, but again, does it kind of change your tune and maybe make you think, I want to be in this for the long haul, beyond 10 years?
Definitely. This year the end of the year will be 10 years for me. So I just passed 9. And I think that when I was released, it was more of, I had been through a lot personally, and then obviously professionally, WWE didn't work out for me. And, when I was released, it was also conversations I was having about wanting to ask for my release anyway. So I was just kind of in this weird space of like, my dream didn't work out, and I had given up a lot of potential opportunities to have to go to WWE and hope that worked in NXT. And couple that with what I was going through personally, it was just a really weird space, and I didn't know well, if I'm really not as good at this as I think I am, and I am never going to win a championship, like, it is what it is. That's not everyone's destiny, right? And I was just becoming okay with all of the things that I've been able to do. I've been able to travel the world. WWE did say yes. I did get a contract, and everyone's dreams change, and so maybe mine had. And now that, I'm a 2-time Impact Knockouts world champion, I'm the Reina de Reinas champion, I'm the Ring of Honor women's world champion, like, I'm glad that I wasn't able to just walk away from this. I'm glad that I, saw the potential that was in me, and Impact also saw that potential, and that I've just kind of been able to ride this wave. It feels amazing that all these people believe in me, and maybe even in some cases more than I believed in myself at the time. So it's validation for me. I had this on my shoulder that I don't think will ever go away, to just be like, no, look at me and look what I can do, and look at the opportunities that I think I've been able to crush. And I'm excited for what other opportunities are out there while I'm still wrestling, which won't be forever, but I definitely can say that I'm happy I stuck it out, and I'm happy, I'm now like a 4-time world champion.
I know you've talked about when you were in WWE, you got, I don't know if heat's the right word, but you kind of, you felt like you got a reputation for asking too many questions, or kind of being too proactive about wanting more. And maybe there was some backlash from that. Were you the same way coming in to Impact, and it was just a different response on their part?
No, I wasn't.
So you changed. Was it like, it maybe like learned a lesson from your time there?
I think at the end of the day, the way I was in WWE was who I really am. I really want to ask questions, and I want to know what's next for me, or what more I can be giving. But I think that it was also a reaction to how I was being treated. I think that I will always self-advocate, and I will always push for more for myself and for the women I believe in, and for the division I'm a part of. that's what I did at Ring of Honor. And I was probably a bit of a pain in the ass at Ring of Honor too, with all the emails I sent and the pushing for our women's division. But I think that the way I was in NXT was the response to how I felt I was being treated. And coming into Impact, my attitude is then again in response to the way I'm being treated. And, from day one at Impact, from the minute I talked to Scott D'Amore on the phone about coming in and seeing what Impact was all about and what I could do here and what my future might be here, he was so open to all of my ideas and to all the stuff that I had pitched in NXT that didn't work. They wanted to do everything the right way for me. Give me a formal debut, give me vignettes. I didn't ask to go into a title picture right away, but I would have never asked that ever, but that's what they saw in me. So coming into that was totally refreshing. And, I've then just kind of been able to be grateful and reflect on this is where I came from and this is how I felt and the disrespect of how I felt I was treated. And then now I'm here and I'm so grateful because it's not that way. It's kind of like, for me, the grass was greener and I can always reflect back on the worst times of my life and everything since then it will be good. So I think with Impact, I've just been able to ask what more can I give of myself, because you're giving me so much. I want to match that equally, professionally and personally.
Yeah. Yeah. And Impact has earned a reputation for years and years for really doing women's wrestling right, really kind of being at the forefront of that, even before WWE's, women's evolution or even AEW was around, or Ring of Honor had a women's division. Impact or TNA once upon a time was really kind of ahead of the curve on this. What does Impact get that the others don't about how to present women's wrestling?
I don't know. I think that Impact, and it doesn't just stop with the women's division, it's for our entire roster, is not afraid to make mistakes and is not afraid to just say, here's the ball, do what you want with it, see where it goes. And if we don't like it, then we'll figure it out. But if we do like it, then we're in a really great place. And I think that Impact has always just been able to just say, have fun with it. Go out there and be you, and we'll figure it out. And that's what's allowed, myself to thrive, but so many other people, men or women, thrive because we're not on eggshells. We're not scared to make mistakes. It's just a very, and again, I can only speak to the environment that I'm in now. I don't know that it was always like this, but I feel right now we all just have that creative freedom, and we're all just the camaraderie and the ability to bounce ideas back and forth has just benefited everyone so tremendously.
Yeah, I've wondered if in a roundabout way, the pandemic almost helped Impact in that it created this level playing field, right? So for a long time, the reality was, you had Impact playing in front of smaller audiences. It was more of an intimate setting on television. And then you tune into Raw or SmackDown or AEW and see the big arena and kind of the big production. And just by that nature, it felt less than. But when it became this level playing field where nobody had fans, everybody was playing in these kind of small, intimate settings, you only focused on the product. And in that sense, I think a lot of fans got to see Impact is every bit as major league as these other companies. I mean, do you agree with that? And what was it like actually experiencing that firsthand? I mean, you really kind of broke through an Impact in the middle of the pandemic, right?
Yeah. I guess I never really thought about it in terms of equaling that level playing field, but I agree with you 100%. I think that we, as a wrestling world and every company had to figure out how to navigate this new no fans, empty arenas. How do you capitalize more on social media and things like that? And I think at the end of the day, Impact tells really great stories. And Impact finds a way to utilize every single one of their roster members in some capacity. So whether it was being in an empty arena on TV every week or something like Wrestle House, again, Impact was just kind of like, we're going to throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And I think that it cultivated this really cool environment that tells really great stories that some people haven't really figured out that system yet. But I agree 100% that it took away that maybe less than feeling because people are now focusing on just that storytelling and that product we're putting out and capitalizing on all the other platforms to push that narrative. It was weird. It was a weird time, I think, just for everyone in the world. But then, I won the Knockouts championship in front of nobody.
Yeah.
And wrestler, while you're thinking about what you're going to do and you're putting these matches together, you kind of think like, ooh, the crowd should react this way at this moment. Or, typically the crowd would be doing this at this moment. And there was just none of that. So it was really, really weird because I was, in the Knockouts championship match at Slammiversary last year, thinking like, as we're wrestling, I'm like, oh, the crowd would maybe be doing this or would maybe be doing that. And in some cases, it dictates the pace that you go at, or when you stop and when you pause and when you grab a hold, things like that. So there was none of it. And it was just weird. But I think especially for my style of wrestling and just kind of my background, training with Team Adams in New Jersey, we would do matches on the fly all the time, just at practice. And so there was, there was never a crowd. There was never anyone to be doing that. So it kind of just brought me back to my roots and the basics of like, we don't need to be throwing everything and the kitchen sink at them because there's no one to bounce it all off of. Again, let's go back and tell really great stories and have really cool wrestling matches. And that way, we're kind of capitalizing on the circumstance. And yeah, I think Impact was able to do that really, really well.
Was there any kind of doubt that came in not having that fan reaction, not having that gauge, not knowing how over you really are if you don't, you're neither hearing boos nor cheers? And I think, certainly in WWE, there were some cases of that there were people who were pushed really hard. And then when fans came back, there was a realization of, oh, these folks aren't nearly as over as we wanted them to be, or we thought them to be. So how do you gauge that? Is it more relying on some other metrics, social media? What's the buzz online? Or maybe this isn't a bad thing. Is it really up to kind of the decision makers at Impact to decide who's over or not? And obviously they liked what you were doing.
I had this conversation at Slammiversary this year with Robert, one of our creative people. And that was the first time we had fans back. So I had never had like a champion's welcome until that moment. And at that point it had been, a year of me being the champion, with the exception of maybe 3 weeks. So I was kind of nervous of like, how are they going to perceive me? And it's been a long time that I've been champion. So have I already overstayed my welcome? Are they just not going to like me because of that? And then after my match with Thunder Rosa, he came up to me and he's like, we just have this really unique thing with you because your character is the bad guy and the cocky heel and the I know I'm the best. And you put your nose up to everyone, but the fans like you and they respect you. So it was interesting, I think, for Impact behind the scenes to realize that there's this like unique, we know we're not supposed to like her, so we boo her, but then she does these moves and we really like them, so it's cool, so we cheer her. And I just had this weird dynamic that we were like, what do we do with this? Because we haven't seen it until now. And now we're this far into your championship reign and it's conflicting, and then they partnered me with Matt Raywalt, and for the homecoming tournament. And it kind of like filled that void because with him, it was like, he's a clear cut heel.
Right.
It really made people be like, we don't like them as a pair. So now we're going to boo Deonna. And I just think it opened Impact's eyes to what more they could do with me or how far they could push me as the heel and the bad guy and more stories that we could tell. But I think that, yeah, I was a little like, how are they going to perceive me? And then at the same time, I also think it kind of reset my championship run because I hadn't had fans. So no one had experienced me personally as the champion yet. So it gave me a little bit more longevity than I think I would have had we had fans throughout the pandemic, because a year of someone being champion is a really long time. And there's only so many competitors and so much you can do. But because we didn't have fans for a year of that, it kind of gave me a little bit more longevity in the long run once we did get fans back.
Did any of that heat that you've gotten come from, and this is more, I guess, about your fellow wrestlers, was there any hesitation on your part of coming into Impact with this persona of the Virtuosa, which is saying a lot, right? So when the character is, I'm really, really good, right? I'm technically just brilliant and still relatively young in your career. Did you worry about any real blowback from other women, maybe further along in their career than you think, and like this girl, thinks who she is, or not, or was that maybe the point to get some of that heat?
I think the Virtuosa character is condescending, right? And I think that there's a bit of it that's like, well, if you don't get it, are you supposed to get it?
Right.
But I think from like an Impact Women's locker room standpoint, I knew everybody, or at some point I had worked with everybody. So everyone kind of welcomed me with open arms. And there wasn't necessarily any of that like real life, like, oh, she thinks she's this way, because I think who I am in real life shines in the background of the character. And they know that I don't think I'm the greatest. Like, they know that Deonna Purrazzo is just like, that's a persona. And who I am in real life is like, I just want to get along with everyone. I don't want to argue. Like, I want to have fun and I want to make everyone laugh. And, so I think in the locker room, it was more people started to respect me more as a leader in our locker room, and someone who had a voice, and someone who wanted to take the role that I was given and be the champion for so long, but also somehow figure out a way to let everyone else shine too.
Yeah. When you talk about leaders in the locker room, I imagine it's been really beneficial to have people like Jazz and ODB and Gail Kim over the years. And that's frankly something you probably don't see too much of in women's wrestling, just because the nature of women's wrestling, there's a lot of turnover. So how valuable has it been having those veterans and institutional experience in the locker room with you?
It's been amazing. I don't know that I had met or interacted as much with Jazz until she came into Impact. So it was kind of a dream situation for me to then be able to wrestle her in a career versus championship match. And there's always so much learning experience that comes with them. And it just makes me a more well-rounded wrestler and a more experienced person, listening to their experiences and what they went through and how they handled situations. So that way, if I ever find myself in a similar, I know kind of how to handle it. So I just tried to ask Jazz all the questions and ODB all the questions, and especially working with them in a wrestling capacity. Like, well, this is what I'm thinking. How about you? And like, yeah, I'm experienced, but you're so much more experienced than me. So you tell me, am I thinking the right way, or am I on the right track, or things like that? And then Gail is a whole nother element, because obviously, she's taken more of an on-screen role recently, but she's always behind the scenes as our producer and our agent. And just to be able to do right by her and her vision of the Knockouts division has been the most fulfilling thing for me. And for her to come back and be like, hell yeah, and I'm proud of you. And like, just that means the world to me, because this was her baby, and she got to see this division grow from day one into, now we were just the main event of a pay-per-view for the first time ever. And to have her there for those experiences alongside with me and Mickey meant the world to me. So Gail has been such a mentor. And then, Madison Rain is also behind the scenes. She's wrestling right now too, but she's also helping agent and produce and be a locker room leader, on top of being one of my very best friends. So work is always fun with her. And, she's the one who really pushed Scott to get in contact with me to bring me to Impact Wrestling. So, I owe, the last 2 years to her.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we tick off all these things that Impact is doing right. And I can't remember when the last time there was this much praise for the Impact. There's really not very much criticism at all from the main event scene, the women's division, the quality of the shows each week, the pay-per-views. What's it going to take for Impact to now get to that next level? Because obviously, for a long time, they had to overcome a lot of baggage about the old TNA. That finally seems to be kind of like ancient history. This is a different product. But is it just a case that, that they're still paying for some missteps of the past? And what's it going to take to take that next step?
Yeah, I think that there's, as much as that old perception has maybe gone away, I think it still lingers. And I think people are still hesitant to maybe give us a chance. So I think that once they do, they're like, oh, wow, this is a really, really great product. And they're doing a lot of things right that other companies necessarily aren't. So I think that the more eyes we can get on Impact, the more our presence socially is out there, then the more people are going to realize, like, this is a really good thing. And I really need to, as a wrestling fan, I really need to support this. But then also, too, I think it's showing people like, yeah, we're on Access TV, but you can also watch us with a YouTube subscription. You can also watch us on our app. There's so many ways through Fight TV, so many ways to actually watch our product other than if you have Access TV or not. So I think it's just an education process. It's going to be continuing to show fans how to get their eyes on our product, because once they do, I think they do stay.
Do you, would you like to see whatever this is with WWE and Mickie James being at the Rumble? It seems like there's the seeds of something. Would you like to see that grow? I mean, do you think it's mutually beneficial if there was some kind of working relationship between WWE and Impact?
I mean, I do think it's mutually beneficial. I mean, they are getting our Knockouts world champion in the Royal Rumble. So I think, it does wonders for us in terms of, again, eyes on our product. But I mean, I tweeted the other day, like, nah, being in the Royal Rumble, just because I'm always going to feel some type of way about my experience. Right. And it's like, until I'm over that, I think it'll be hard for me to see what the benefit for us is. Yeah. But for me personally, but at the end of the day, I think that that the fact that the door is open is what's the incredible part, because we're literally living in this multiverse that no one ever thought was going to be possible, especially with TV. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's an incredible thing, and I would love to see more of Impact people be able to cross through those doors, whether it be for WWE, whether it be at AEW, NWA, Ring of Honor, whatever it is. This kind of forbidden door has reinvigorated professional wrestling, and I think that we're just living in a really exciting time right now.
I want to touch a little bit more on NXT, and as you touched on, I mean, you had your problems with the way they handled your career while you're there, and now over the last 6 months or so, we've seen a complete overhaul of NXT. Seeing what's become of NXT since you left, does it make you feel more like I dodged a bullet? Do you wonder whether maybe you'd be a better fit in the current NXT than you were the past NXT?
Yeah, kind of. It's weird because I feel like with this NXT 2.0, it's been really interesting the way they develop people. And it's kind of like, it's either you're going to get it or you're not. And you're either going to be a star on TV and we see potential in you, or you're not. And I think that as, maybe a developmental, for me, that makes sense. For me, them bringing in people, some with wrestling experience, some without, and just kind of giving them the opportunity to be on TV and, win a match or not, or be kind of in a story for a few weeks and then we see what happens or where we can go from this. It's something I didn't have. I was put on TV in a role to lose. I don't. Besides the Mae Young Classic, I never won a match in my time at NXT. And, it's not all about winning or losing, but when you lose 18 times and then they put you out there for the 19th time, the crowd kind of doesn't care whether you're out there or not, because they know the deal, right? So I think it's really, really interesting to be putting someone like a Braun Breaker out there after 6 months of training and just saying, let's see how you're perceived and let's see what happens. And let's see how you grow in this role, because you're either going to grow in it or you're not. And then when you're not, it doesn't work out. And I think that's okay too. The NXT I was in was just a really odd system where people weren't being released. And then there was, 100 and some odd people with only so many spots, and people weren't going up to the main roster. So other people weren't getting opportunities. So I really think this environment that they've cultivated, although I don't want anyone to ever lose their job, I think that, people who they don't see a future in are getting the opportunity to go elsewhere and make that future happen instead of sitting and waiting and becoming unhappy like I was.
Does working in Impact, the other kind of bold step they took, it's been a couple of years now, was putting the world title on a woman a couple of years ago. Everything happened with Tessa and they kind of haven't revisited that. But that's another door that's kind of been opened, and because it's been open, does that become potentially a goal for you in Impact? I know you've talked about not necessarily being the biggest fan of the intergender stuff. Have you changed your position on that?
Yes and no. I think that maybe where I was 4 years ago with intergender wrestling, I definitely have become more open-minded, 100% about it. And I dabbled in it a little bit. I had a really great match with Matt Riddle at a Beyond Intergender show a couple WrestleMania weekends ago. Um, so I just think that the impact, having that door open for women to be the world champion, or women wrestle men in that capacity, is just a really interesting facet to what Impact Wrestling is doing. For me, maybe not something I want to dabble in as much while I'm in the Impact ring, but it's definitely something I think I've become more open-minded about.
Yeah. I would ask you about one of your friends in the business, Britt Baker. You see what she's doing in AEW. And I think we could say this by the time this comes out, it'll be old news, but she's our Woman of the Year, voted by readers.
Mm-hmm.
I think she got a couple other ones. I think she got Match of the Year
Yes.
with Thunder Rosa, and maybe Most Improved. So just as a friend, as a colleague, how great is it to see that? And how do you sort of evaluate what she's done over the last year?
As a best friend, I'm so proud of her. Me, her, and Chelsea Green are kind of like three musketeers. We are the trifecta, and just to kind of see where I am compared to where I was 2 years ago, where Britt is compared to where she was 2 years ago. Same with Chelsea, where she was and where she is now. There are not better people in the world that I would want in my inner circle like that, and there's not anyone I would want more success for than, those two people. So to see her be Most Improved, to see how the fans have, turned their tide on her and are way more receptive to what she's doing now, to see her be the face of the AEW women's division, I'm so thrilled. I'm so happy that we all are getting to share this time together and the success that we have together.
I imagine it's not a coincidence that the three of you have reached this success kind of around the same time. What do the three of you share? Is it one of these kind of like iron sharpening iron? I mean, do you guys consult with each other? Do you trade ideas? And again, is it kind of a shared success among the three of you?
It absolutely is. I think all three of us think that when one succeeds, we all succeed. And it kind of is an iron sharpens iron thing. I mean, there's two people I talk to every single day, all day long. And we definitely bounce ideas off of each other. We'll go to the ring together and train together. And, before Britt wrestled Sheeta at All Out, like I was in the ring with her, like, oh, this could be cool. And what about this? And, we just have that type of relationship where we can be brutally honest with each other. And at the end of the day, know it's for a good cause and we're going to be better for it. So like I said, I think I share the sentiment with them that when they succeed, I succeed because they're my best friends. And that's exactly what I want for them.
Being so close with Britt, does it make you, wrestling's weird this way, right? So I don't know if when you're so close with someone, you want to wrestle them more, or because they're your friend, you don't want to wrestle them. So which is it in your case?
We want to wrestle each other.
You do. Yeah.
I'm the most vocal about wanting to wrestle each other, and being the women's match that kind of solidified that Forbidden Door crossover. And unfortunately it didn't get to happen then, but absolutely. I mean, she's bucket list because I think we're both at the top of our game right now. And you want to, as she's the champion as I'm not the knockouts champion anymore, but as a champion, and I will always have that mindset as a champion, you want to wrestle the best out there. You want to test yourself against the best out there. And I truly do believe Britt is one of the best out there. So absolutely, I want to wrestle her. It's not going to be if, it's just going to be when.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to ask you something that I've asked other women, and sometimes I feel like they don't like it being asked, but in your case, you've brought it up, and that is this issue of motherhood, right? So that's something that women wrestlers deal with that men just don't have to deal with. I mean, certainly there's no shortage of fathers, but they can wrestle throughout it, right? I mean, obviously there's at least a 9-month window there where you wouldn't be able to wrestle. I've heard you talk about that was a goal. Is it still a goal? And how does that affect everything? Because it really kind of shortens the window for, now you've seen, Becky Lynch and others show that you can do it and then come back. Is that the idea? Or do you expect that once you take that step, it's the end of your wrestling career?
I don't know. I think that I definitely want to be a mom. Absolutely. It's something that, I talk about often. And, obviously I hope that I spend the rest of my life with Steve. So it's something Steve and I talk about frequently. It's just going to be when is the right time, and when am I going to feel like I'm not giving up a really career changing opportunity to be a mom. And that sounds terrible because I think that, gosh, if I turned up pregnant tomorrow, I'd be so thrilled with it, right? But I think at the end of the day, I just am in a really good position in my career right now that I would be maybe a little resentful if I had to give it up right now.
Right.
So it's just going to be a when, because I definitely want all the babies. And I think that I give myself maybe until I'm 30 to make that decision of like, where am I in my career? Can I do it now and be happy walking away? Because I don't know if I'll want to come back. I don't know what it's like to be a mom. I don't know what it's like to have to go on the road and leave your child with their grandparent. I don't know. I know how that is as a dog mom and I hate it. So I can only imagine being a human mom and leaving my child. So I just don't know what that experience entails yet. So I don't want to say I'd leave wrestling permanently, but I don't want to say I'd come back to wrestling either because I've never done that before.
Yeah.
So I just want to be 110% satisfied with where I am and what I've done and that I've experienced all that I can experience before I'm like, yes, it's time to settle down and maybe never come back to wrestling.
But there's always going to be something else though, right? I mean, that's the thing about a wrestling is that you climb one mountain and then there's just going to be the next one and the next one and the next one. So,
really, but I will say that with what I've experienced over the last 2 years, I am very satisfied. And, I think that I don't know what 2022 now holds. But I think that, again, like I said, if I was to end up pregnant tomorrow, it would be like, I'm satisfied and we'll see, in a year where I'm at. But as how I feel now, not being pregnant,
no news for us. Let's hoping to get the scoop.
Want to know that I'm satisfied before I take all those steps to be a mom.
The other kind of real life question I wanted to ask you about, and I heard you talk about this, was kind of planning for your life after wrestling. I know you were studying to become, you have been a teacher, you're studying to become a history professor. Are you still taking those steps? And if so, going back to Britt, was she any kind of inspiration in it blows my mind that she's done what she's done while also holding down a dentistry practice and having studied both at the same time. I think it's as crazy a thing as I've ever heard a wrestler do. Does that inspire you that you could take on something else and still have success in this business?
Absolutely. I think it's such an inspirational story. And she, whenever she chooses to tell that story and all that it entailed, I mean, knowing bits and pieces that I do, I can't wait for the world to know all that it entailed, because it is inspiring. And I think more than just being a wrestler and trying to do that, I think a lot of real life people with real life jobs and real life experiences outside of wrestling will relate to her in that way. But knowing she did it, I mean, I definitely feel like more power to me that I can do it, especially because I go to school online. So I'm not in a classroom, in a lab, doing labs, a Monday through Friday, and then having to go to wrestling school Saturday, Sunday, and then, doing it again. I do, my school schedule is pretty flexible. So being on the road and doing schoolwork isn't as, I don't want to say time consuming because it is, but my schedule with the courses I've chosen and the path I've chosen for school gives me a lot more flexibility than she had in dental school, 100%. But it's always something I wanted to do. I just felt, as an 18-year-old going to college, then I had a full-time job teaching, and I was trying to be in wrestling school and wrestle on the weekends and do all of it. It became way too much. And I had myself stretched way too thin. And the one thing I could give up was school. So I did. And I always just felt like while I'm young, I need to do all the wrestling and I need to see where wrestling will take me, because going back to school will always be an option. College and a history degree is never going away. It'll never not be a possibility. But being in the thick of wrestling while I'm young enough and able to do it, there's a window to that. So now that I've, obviously I have a flexible schedule, Impact running twice a month now, and not necessarily taking as many indie dates as I was a couple years ago. I have that flexibility, and I thought now is the time. So I'm about 1 year out from getting my bachelor's degree in history, and we'll see where it takes me. Getting a college degree has always been a bucket list thing for me, and I'm really proud of myself that I'm almost there.
Do you think about it? And I think back to, we were just talking about Jazz and ODB and Gail Kim and what they meant for you, what you could mean to that next generation. And is something like this, getting a college degree while still working, something that you hope could be an inspiration to a younger generation of wrestler?
Absolutely. I think that as generations have gone on, we've seen more of a life after wrestling and more of careers after wrestling and things like that. So I think that my generation was kind of inspired by people being able to do a little bit more of that at the end of their career and being able to live outside of wrestling. And, our generation pushes that a little bit further. So I hope there's a little girl out there that says, I want to be a wrestler one day too. And I want to be a history professor. And I want to be a doctor. And I want to be an astronaut and whatever it is. Because you can do it all. And I think, 18-year-old me had to make those choices. And I always thought like, well, I'm just the wrestler. So I'm going to be a wrestler. I have to be a wrestler. I was always the wrestler. And now I'm realizing slowly as I get older that no, I can be the wrestler, but I can also be the history nerd. And I can also be, the college student, the dog mom and the aunt and the whatever I want to be. There's all these facets of my life that encompass me. I don't need to just pick one.
Yeah. That's not very heelish of you. Anyway.
Doesn't really think she's the greatest.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. We've been talking for about 45 minutes here. I think we've got what we need. This was a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Wish you the best. Cheering you on. And thanks again.
No, thank you so much. I'm so happy we got to do it.